So the mid-season break has come and gone. Pies sit in a very favourable, if not totally, certainly a very familiar position to last year. 8-3, good look at finals. Special Ed's been regaling us with the percentages of how many teams make the finals at this point with 8-3, and it looks like we're a sure thing. But the truth is, the undercut is finished, and now the prize fighters are coming out. Fremantle this week, first cab off the rank as the real challengers this year for a premiership, and we get our first chance to test ourselves against the best. GC, looking forward to it?
Yeah, massively looking forward to it. I mean, it is the test. So, as you say, what's gone before is the warm up. We really don't know how good we are. I think that everyone would be pretty comfortable saying that in a way, but we've got that little bit of hope. But I think it's going to be Fremantle and Freo is a tough ask.
Oh, it's a tough gig. It's a tough trip. I was speaking to a couple of Pie supporters this week who have thought about the idea of, let's rest a few players and take it as a loss. But I think that's such a short-sighted way of looking at it. Magpie Girl, I'm sure you're ever confident of our chances. What do you think?
Oh, look, I'm realistic about it. It's a tough gig. I am just really thrilled with where the team's at the moment. Every week it gets more and more exciting, and but they're still a young team, and yeah, it's probably going to be. Well, it's a tough call. I mean, there's no way you can not think of it as being a really tough challenge. But gee, Richmond beat them.
Yeah,
anything's possible.
Oh, certainly. Look. I think these are the teams that it's not even a case, I don't think, of winning this week, but it's a case of showing that we're up to a certain standard of football now.
That's actually right, and I think that's the difference this year, is that everyone just really wants to see the continued effort each week, and not giving back, not giving in.
Yeah.
And it's enough to satisfy you, really, even though you might be disappointed with a loss. If you see the effort, it makes a big difference.
I mean, I think I spoke about this a couple of weeks ago, just before the GWS game. The one thing that I don't think Collingwood has at the moment from the league is respect. And the unfortunate thing is that, and that hasn't made a lot of sense to me. I hope that we come out and show that, if we are up to this level, if we can challenge a Fremantle for 3 quarters or for the whole game and push them to their limits, that we might start getting a bit of that respect that I think we quite rightly deserve, because we have shown a lot of improvement as a team.
It's not unreasonable that they are waiting a little bit on us, because we're doing the same thing ourselves, I think, as supporters. But I think the respect can come. But I think, it's easy. We're in a position where, a bit like last year, we could easily lose whatever respect we've built up if we don't perform in the next month.
Yeah.
But we will be, if we come through the next month, if we happen to snag a win against either Freo or Hawthorn, I think that's probably unlikely, but it'd be fantastic if we did. And then if we get two wins out of the next 3, I think, and we perform well against Hawthorn and Freo, we'll be seen as much more legitimate.
Yeah, absolutely. It really does set the tone for the rest of our season. But let's just focus back on the first part so far. What are a couple of things that really stood out for you, GC, in this first half of the season that you've been really impressed by, whether it be players or game style? What's really stood out to you?
I think the first thing I'd say is that Buckley seems to have united the team. I mean, there was a lot of talk last year, and particularly the year before, about the fracture in the group and were they all playing, whereas everyone's swinging in the one direction. And I think they really look like they're all working together. They look like a young unit, and the older guys like the Swans and that have really bought into the whole new ethos. So I think that's one thing that's really really good. And I think probably the stepping up of guys who maybe I didn't see as real potential footballers that were going to really be best 22. And I'd be thinking Crisp, I'd be thinking Ramsey, who before he got injured, even looking at guys like Corey Gold or Jesse White and that, and Jared Blair. They're all, a lot of those peripheral guys are having as good a season as they've had for a while. So that's where I see our improvements coming.
I mean, there are some harsh critics of Jesse White. You look at him statistically; he's actually having quite a good year by his standards. He's doing the role that he's set out to do. I think the really pleasing thing is that we've been able to put really good scores on the board, really changed up our attack, really diversified our spread of goal kickers. And even though Travis has had big games, I think he's kicked most of his goals in the last three games. So he's had some big bags. That diversity of goal kicker really is standing out for me as a key area of improvement.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. So looking around and just saying, well, if Travis has a bad day and we're still over 100 points, and we've got the other blokes chipping in, then that's perfect.
And we'll talk about this in more detail when Seppo comes on. And I think this is what I think is changed for us against a team like a Fremantle, whereby there would have been a concern in the past. I would have had a concern going into this game where, okay, we're going to get shut down in our forward line because we're going to rely too heavily on one or two players to kick that score. But I think that the diversity in the midfield now, the goals, the fact that we're getting a lot of goals coming out of our midfield group, out of Blair is kicking goals, even though he's playing more as a forward, but Crisp, Pendlebury's is getting on the board a fair bit more. This is huge for us. Yeah, and Swan as well. This is huge for us as a team. This is what we were doing back in 2010 when we came out and took the comp by storm.
Yeah. I think if we can get that continued, group of guys and even your seedsmen and these sort of blokes chipping in at times, we really need that. We've got Travis and Jesse White, who are going to probably be our two main guys, along with
Elliot.
Jamie Elliott. But after that, if you've got 3 or 4 others that are at score 20 or thereabouts, it's a great spread.
Absolutely right. What are some of the things that you've really liked about the season so far, Magpie Girl?
Well, I have to agree with GC on that. I think it's been fantastic to see the cohesion of the group. I just see them enjoying their football. I go back to that picture of Buckley and his boys from a couple of weeks ago. To me, that epitomised where the season is at. They're all on the same page. They're all enjoying their football, and they're playing for each other. And they're just all going in the right direction or in the same direction. Yeah, you're right. Look, there's a big sense of there being a united front now at Collingwood, and no matter what sort of media speculation gets drummed up, I think that within ourselves as a club, within that group, I think everyone's fairly confident in the direction that the club is heading now. And those brave calls that the club made a couple of years ago to get rid of a few older players is starting to really bear fruit and really pay off. JC, what are a couple of things you expect from us in this back half of the season? What are some players that you expect perhaps to really shine and really solidify their place in our team and in the competition?
I'm expecting a lot of them to do a lot of things, I think. But two blokes that I've really been pleased with, who've been out a lot with injury, but have got that seniority and that leadership in the backline. Nathan Brown and Alan Tuvey. I think they're both in the last month or so really stepped up back towards some of their pre-injury best form. And I think we've forgotten a bit before that how good they can be. And I think with such a young group around them, they're the two leaders back there. And if they can, I think they can gel that whole thing of, Marley Williams, Langdon, all these blokes, Jack Frost gelling around them, and they'll be the leaders and they'll have a really tight group. So that's one group that I'd like to see. And I think I'm really interested to see what Ben Reid does when he comes back. In that, how do we mix him in? Because I'd really love to see Jesse White, Travis, and Ben Reid run around on the same forward line and see what they can do. My only problem with that is, what do we do with the two ruckmen then?
Yeah, it does become a bit of a concern, and because we've spoken about this at length before. To get the most out of both of these guys, we need to play them both consistently. We need to play them in the same team to see how the team works with them, to see how the structure works. So you do go in a bit tall. And you're not about to drop someone like Jesse White, who does provide you with a fair bit of versatility. I think short term, when Ben Reid does come back, it will be across the halfback line, who will get swung forward occasionally. Because really, I can't fault the two fullbacks at the moment. Frost and especially Nathan Brown is in absolutely fine form. So it becomes a challenge. Levi Greenwood came in last week into the VFL and really tore it up. My first game of the season there, and it was so good to see his influence on the game from halftime onwards. He really stood out. And this is a guy that, you add the names, Greenwood and Reid into this Collingwood side. It actually becomes quite imposing to look at, but a very difficult team to get into at the moment.
Yeah, and then there's Grundy and Blair too. I mean, as of this week, you've got a whole lot of senior experience you're trying to push back in, and then you're not even talking yet about your Scharenbergs and Ben Kennedys, and who are all knocking at the door also. So yeah, even the idea of where, that thought of where do we play Ben Reid? If we fit him in forward or back, how do we structure that up? How do we change what's been sort of working pretty well? And who's going to be the unlucky ones to miss out? I mean, it's a great position to be in. And there must be a lot of, enthusiasm at training at the moment for blokes wanting to keep putting their hand up, because that's what a lot of them are having to do.
It must be an interesting position for Buckley as coach, because, every coach wants to be 8-3 and have this great winning record in top four and looking at it. The next 4 weeks tell a lot, I think, for him, because I think that the quote was, in 2012, we didn't feel like we were up to the standard of Sydney and Hawthorn, and thus we had to rebuild. And obviously we're not, we've done all that now. But if we get to the point where we run into brick walls in Freo, Hawthorn, can't get over the line against those two, against Port, Sydney, if we lose to that, and I still refer to Port as being part of that big four, and we've got West Coast mixed in with there too. Yeah, is there a point there where there might be some tough decisions that the coach has to make, where he turns around and says, and what sort of 22 am I picking now? Who are the players that need to come into this side to make us a better team for the future? So whilst right now I think it's such a very, very positive thing, and I'm very much looking forward to the challenge. There could be a few question marks on the horizon, both good and bad.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I was sort of alluding to before. That respect in that position could disappear if we perform badly in the next month. It will be a very different way we'll be looking at the team, and we will be questioning a lot of players who we're now looking at with a great deal of promise. So that there's a whole group of them there that are actually just saying, well, I've made a really good start to this season, but the job's only partly done, and if I want to be part of this, I've got to now take the next step up again. It's which is exciting, but I hope they don't take any backward steps.
Well, we are actually. We'd have to be one of the few teams who has got this tremendous depth suddenly to be calling on, which is a really enviable position, I would think.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the same
but its depth is to some degree untested, because some of them might, they've got even a Ramsey or something looks good in the 3 or 4 games. Now, is he going to translate that when he comes back? So it's going to be fierce competition for spots.
Same with the promise that Sinclair showed before injuring himself. Same with a guy like Freeman, who'll have something to prove. Scharenberg, it does become it becomes very interesting. But you're right. Look, as I said, that respect that we think we might have may disappear in the next few weeks, and I guess it's time to bring in the opposition, so he can tell us all about his team's current success.
But just on that though, you'd have to think it's the better problem to have, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
absolutely. Dozens of players that you've got to.
It's a fabulous problem.
Compare that to last year. Yeah.
Absolutely, and I think the really pleasing thing is you look at the profile of our list and how young we actually are. One player over 30. We are arguably the best, if not the second best, young quote unquote team in the competition. And this is it's such a great thing to have. Such little experience, but to be performing at such a high level, and it only bodes well for the future.
And remember, we haven't even mentioned the big show yet.
Absolutely, we've gone the whole podcast without talking about Mr. Abbott himself. who you know what? If you really want to make a first impression on me, that was a great day to go down to the VFL and watch that. That was quite remarkable.
Oh, it was exciting.
Yeah.
How was the breakfast, GC?
Oh, the breakfast was great. Yeah, it was interesting. Sitting there and Swanee. It was funny listening to Swanee more because he was exactly who you thought he would be, in person.
Did you see that that sort of bond and camaraderie that you'd expect amongst all the players, off the field in that kind of situation?
Well, yeah, I guess you'd see what you'd expect at a footy club. You could see them all, there's two to a table and they're all, obviously looking at each other and winking at each other every now and again because, it's a job for them. So they're a whole lot of blokes doing a little bit of a job and having a bit of a laugh. And particularly when Tyson Goldsack and Broomhead, they were sitting on a table and none of their sponsors turned up. So I could see Cloak and a few others giving it to them, while they were, saying, what are you blokes,
No,
it's good. See that side of things.
Yeah.
I would have come down and supported Broomhead. I was just a phone call away. I'll let the club know to put me on a standby list for it as a seat filler for the next event.
Yeah, well, you wandered in there. You could have. I'm sure. I don't think they weren't taking name badges. So.
Food for thought for next year.
Okay, well, we get Seppo in.
Let's get Seppo in. Let's hear what he has to say for himself and see if he can talk up Freo's premiership chances more than everyone else already is. So come on in, Seppo, Freo royalty in Bigfooty terms. How are you doing tonight, mate?
I am very good and looking forward to this challenge on Thursday night between the two sides.
It's interesting that you perceive it as a challenge as well. Every other Freo supporter I speak to thinks there's going to be a lay-down misere against a plucky Collingwood side, but it should be an interesting game.
Yeah, it should be, and it's one that I probably looked at the start of the year thinking it's not going to be easy, and nothing's changed between what my side's done and what your side's done over the last couple of weeks to change my mind from that. So it's, you can't just look on last time we played, which was, round one last year, because a lot between the two sides has changed since then. So it's going to be interesting, especially with the two sides coming in after the bye, after a both well-deserved rest, and hopefully just, launch into the second part of the season.
Haven't we played since the first round of last year?
Yeah, it's been a long time.
God.
It's been a little while. So just a bit of a reflective analysis on Freo a bit, because I do like watching a bit of the opposition, and I must say Freo's not one of the teams I particularly enjoy watching, because it's a brand of football that can be frustrating, I guess, to watch. But this year's been slightly different. There has been a bit more edge to the Freo side. Now, I've always thought that a Ross Lyon team can't win a premiership, but this one seems to have evolved to take on a bit more of a dynamic edge. How have you seen it as a supporter?
Well, what you've sort of said there, that Ross Lyon's hard to watch. I think some people would probably agree to that back in 2012 and 13, but probably the last year and definitely this year, we've seen probably a change. And for the first 7 or 8 rounds of the year, we were probably playing some of the most exciting footy if everyone's actually opened their eyes and watched a Freo game. One of the big differences is us not actually playing Crowley anymore with his provisional suspension running right the way through. We've got a different midfield setup with Sandlands feeding down to Fife, Neal, Mundy and Hill occasionally through there. So it's a different midfield setup, and some of the players have stepped up a notch, and we're playing a more of an attacking footy with a couple of different structures, different players out there. But we're certainly playing, I think, for the first 8 or can't remember how many games of this season, we were averaging about 97 points for. With the last 3 games, we've dropped right back and only averaging about 57, but 3 of that's probably due to the rain. I think against Adelaide, I was over there for that game. We played in the wet and it was a hard slog, low-scoring game. Against Richmond, it was very greasy and the guys struggled to kick straight, yet somehow Richmond did. And then even our game up at the Gold Coast, I'm not sure if you tuned in for that one, but that was not a downpour, but once again, very greasy footy, and I think we kicked, shockingly, that game 6 goals, 17. So we had double scoring shots for them, but just really struggled. So the last couple of weeks has brought our scoring right the way down there. But if you look at the start of the year, we're definitely a different side and playing more of an attacking brand.
Yeah, I mean, if you take it from a basic points perspective, I think Freo are ranked outside the 8 for points scored. But you're right. It all depends on the opposition, depends on the day, and you can certainly notice that there's been a change in Freo from that team that made the grand final only a couple of years ago. What was it though about the game against Richmond, aside from the slightly inclement conditions? What is it that they did? How did they pick this almost impenetrable Freo team apart?
It was almost a combination of good luck, because I've watched a lot of games this year other than Freo games. I don't think I've seen a side have that much luck and kickers straight, and even their bad kicks. And I think the commentators even mentioned it, that were shocking kicks going through goal. They just got the jump on us, and to kick 8 goals, one, I think, in that first quarter was almost a reflection of what Port Adelaide did to Richmond in that final last year. It was almost a start like that. And the fact that we clawed the match back to, I think we're getting close to about 17 or 18 points down right towards the last before we missed a couple of shots on goal. But we certainly gave them the head start. And the footy they played in that first quarter was just something that I've never seen a side do against us for a long, long time. So it was almost Richmond just playing out of their skins, really. And I think Richmond have a habit of doing that every year. They seem to play well against the sides that go on and win the flag or something like that. I think they've done it to Hawthorn and Sydney over the last couple of years. So I don't know what it was. It was certainly probably sides. Someone's probably picked up on our board that, sides are starting to work out Sandilands now, that they're conceding the tap and putting their players around the ball to tackle where he's going to tap to, because they've just conceded defeat. No, not many ruckmen are actually winning the tap outs against him. And I suppose Goldstein's almost in the same boat, that they're letting him win the hit outs and just trying to tackle whoever's going to get the ball next. So that's one thing we've noticed. So on our Freo board, we've been discussing, what we can probably do to mix it up a bit, because some people reckon they've worked out Sandilands now, and that's just to let him win the tap and tackle where it's going.
I think it's always so hard to, when you have a player of that calibre, that size, who can influence the game, as much as he can on his day. I don't think there's ever really a way to, you can work around it, and you just have to try and deal with that situation as best you can. And I guess he gets probably a little bit of a reprieve this week in terms of a one-on-one ruck duel. Not that I think that the combination of Grundy and Witts would have deterred him all that much, but with Grundy out, could pose some challenges for us. GC, how do you see us Pies combating the monster that is Sandilands?
Oh, I think Seppo might have our tactics right, that as good as young Witsy is going, and he's a big man himself, he's going to struggle against Sandilands, and I think they'll work on that basis, that Sandilands will be winning the taps, and we'll counter that as best we can. And then I think almost the bigger problem, because you almost concede that the next problem is to say, well, Frego's midfield is such a strong one at the moment, and I think with Crowley being out and really Lockie Neal probably taking his place has been a real advantage from an attacking point of view. I think we've got to really, our maybe a Crisp, and that is going to be really important to see who they can lock down there, because Barlow's the other one that you didn't even mention. I think when you've got Barlow, Fife, Neal, Mundy running through there, it's an awe-inspiring midfield.
It's interesting you actually mentioned Barlow, because he's one that's actually not been playing on the ball this year. I think he's only attended about 1 or 2 centre bounces a game. So it's one sort of difference we've had this year with actually getting him out of there and playing him half forward, and even running in from the wing on the outside, which is something I probably didn't foresee at the start of this year, but I'm not sure if it's one thing that's helped us. But it's certainly a different mix of not having Barlow in there, because for the last few years he's been one of our great ball winners, and I suppose has the ability, like you'd have Pendlebury, to dish off a good handball even when he's got people holding on to him, but he's just not being used in that same way. So maybe they're wanting something different from our midfield. He's getting time on the ball and around there, but it's never really starting in that centre square.
Mm. I think the interesting thing when I watch Freo is the defence is much vaunted, and I think that the defence starts with midfield pressure. You've only conceded 701 points for the year across 11 games, which is just remarkable. But it's that midfield pressure and that midfield intensity that's really been ingrained. And that effort's something that I think Collingwood this year has prided itself on. So it is going to be a bit of irresistible force against the immovable object. With any luck, having that sort of being able to compete with for that amount of time this Thursday. GC changes for our mob this week. Are we going to see a couple of inclusions or remain as we are?
I think. I wouldn't like to be on the match committee this week because I think there are people we want to come in, but there's not that many obvious outs. I think Seedsman should go out because I think he just hasn't been good enough lately, and because I think we need Blair in. Grundy, it doesn't seem like he'll be fit, so we don't have to worry about bringing him in. Reid and Green would be the other two. I watched Reid in the VFL last week, and he's for mine he's definitely ready, but I suspect they won't bring him to Perth. They'll give him another week. Greenwood, I think is just not. I think he hasn't had enough, and especially to running around on the big ground in Perth. I think really Blair for Seedsman. I don't think I'd do anything more than that.
What about yourself, Seppo? Do you foresee any changes for your mob?
Yeah, well, we've got a couple of guys that played good games in the waffle. There was 3 guys I think dropped from our side last week, but we've had Zach Clark, our second ruckman, got dropped for form probably, and had a very good waffle game. So we had Hanneth out there, a second and third year player that gave Sandlands a chop out. So I'm not sure if they'd probably leave him in there for some forward structure or a rest in the ruck. Sure. Or bring Clark back. So that could be potentially one change. And we had Main out of the side as well. And we've also got De Boer, who's on the outer. And we've only just had Mzungu, who's only played 1 or 2 games this year, play against the Gold Coast. So we've got a couple of players that are around the mark that could potentially change. The interesting thing from your point of view is, would you have Wits only, or would you have a second taller you'd be having in there, or you run White or someone to give him a chop out?
I think we'll be running White because there's. I don't think the only other bloke really would be Galt. Cox, the American, wouldn't be ready. And Galt, I don't think's the answer. I thought Jesse White has to run as the backup ruckman, I think.
So it will be a challenge in those moments that Wits obviously isn't playing ruck, because whilst I think White is a pretty favourable athlete, you might get the upper hand on us in the ruck contest when he's roving around the ground.
The good thing is he's coming off a really confident game, so hopefully he can maintain some of that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think when he's rucking, though, we will definitely be roving to the opposition.
Is the weather going to be a factor, and is the forecast for fine?
Well, I've been hoping for fine weather because we've played, like I said, in 3 terrible games. It's really affected our skills, but I've just had a look at the forecast before, and it's going to be sunny and 19 degrees, and it's been sunny the last few days in Perth now. So it's at least hopefully going to be good weather, and we're out of the slog of the wet weather we've had the last couple of weeks.
Just our luck, huh? Yeah. Seppo, any final thoughts on the game? I mean, what are you looking forward to for not only this Thursday but for the rest of the season from Freo? Because this is it feels like your club's has a good opportunity this year to really go somewhere and do something special. Yeah,
well, it's one game that I really hope that would sort of define us to get us off to a good second hard start of the year, because after this we've got another home game against Brisbane, and then we take off to Tassie to play the Hawks. So this game and the Hawks game are probably 2 of our biggest challenges for the rest of the year. After that, it's really opens ourselves up to firm up as a top 2 spot, which all Freo fans want, and that's what we'll be hoping for. But this game is looking really good, because I think where you guys have got some strength with your attacks, our defence has taken a bit of a hit, and we've had Michael Johnson come out with an injury recently. We've had to introduce some young talent down the back, and Alex Pearce, first year or second year player, and there's a couple of weaknesses that I can see Collingwood exposing, especially when you've got good players that I like to watch, like Jamie Elliott and even Oxley down the back. He's one I've got my Supercoach side, and I've been focusing on a couple of those players this year, as well as Taylor Adams, some of my favourites. So it looks like you've got a good couple of young talent guys that have working their way through the side then. So it's a good challenge for us to test ourselves against someone that's, you've been knocking away the wins as well. So it's going to be quite interesting how this game shapes up this Thursday night.
What about yourself, GC? What are you expecting from our boys? We talked a bit about the fight and the effort, but what else are we looking out for?
I think we need to be competitive in this game. We can't afford to do what we did last time we played Freo, and it's really important for us because we have started the season well. We're now coming to consolidation, and this is a really big test. So if Freo come out all guns firing, I don't think we can beat them at their best, not especially not in the West. But so I've got Freo firm favourites. I want us to be competitive and to put in a really strong effort. And if Freo happen to be off on the day, and we really turn it on, we've got the ability to cause a bit of an upset, but that's what it would be.
It's so great that we can, at this point, and because as the pessimist I am, I wouldn't have even considered this conversation palatable at the start of the year, that we'd be a team that would go over to Perth and really, really prove something. And maybe that was my pessimism, but it's so pleasing for me as a supporter to be able to, to really be impressed by how far we've come in what is quite a very short period of time.
Absolutely, it's been exciting. Two teams are full of supporters who are pretty excited, I would have thought.
Absolutely. Seppo, I think I'll call it a night there because we are running a bit long tonight, but I want to really thank you for coming on. I really do appreciate it. And I can honestly and openly say that if the Pies can't win a flag this year, I'd like for it to be Freo. Even though I don't like Ross Lyon, but I would like for it to be Freo.
We do hear that a lot from opposition supporters. I think they're sick of some of the other clubs that are right up there. So thanks for the kind words. And if you watch Ross Lyon enough, you'll learn to like it.
I don't think so.
I don't know about that. I'm sorry. but thank you so much for coming on. And best of luck for Thursday. But hopefully it goes our way.
No worries. My pleasure. And may the best team win.
Thanks, Seppo.
Yeah, good luck, Seppo.
Absolutely. And we plan on it. So, GC, thanks again for coming on. Really appreciate your input, as always.
Thank you. And is Seppo still there?
Yep.
Now, are you a Perth man?
No, I'm actually, originally from Perth. I'm in Melbourne for the past 7 years.
Oh, I was just going to ask if you had any local inside knowledge on Brendan Abbott as a junior, but you need to.
I haven't heard that name before, so.
It won't be too long.
You'll hear it in the future.
Okay.
The big show is coming. And Magpie Girl, thank you very much for coming on again and being a part of our team as always.
Thank you, Mighty T. And
Laurie, I still plan on getting you on at some point for a featured role, but thank you for all your efforts. Everyone, please stay in. We've got TD's rant today as well.
Yep.
Excellent. So please hold on for that, guys. And with any luck, we'll get a win on Thursday. But for now, this is the Mighty T signing out.
Well, for my real 12 rant, I'm going to talk about the first half of the season. We're 8-3, which is very good. A lot better than a lot of people thought. A lot of people have said we'd be lucky to win a few games. We'd be a bottom four side or at best, same as we were last year, but we're 8-3. We could easily be 9-2 if we beat Richmond. And we know how the Scumpies treated us in that game. We got screwed in that game, I have to say. I know we should have won, but umpires did have a factor in it. But I said we've been good. People have said we've beaten a lot of the bottom sides. Well, of course we've beat the bottom sides. We should be beating bottom sides. And we have been beaten, and we have been just flogging them. We flogged Gold Coast, Carlton, St Kilda, and we've lost to a couple of teams in the midterm. Geelong, well, if it wasn't for the first quarter, we would have won that game. Richmond, same thing. Second quarter, went to sleep. And Adelaide, well, we were just starting the season off, and we played at Docklands, that whole net ground. So we just they played a great ground. We beat GWS, but of course people say, well, GWS got injured. Well, tut. We did that against Brisbane last year. Everyone went down and we went bad after that. So same thing as us. So tough titties. But we have some really tough games coming up. We're going to play Fremantle over there on Thursday, which is... I'm not sure if we're going to win the game, but I guess we'll give it a crack. Hawthorn, well, we just have struggled against Hawthorn for years, just being one of the teams that we just can't beat. And then we play Port over there. Well, how Port's going, we should beat Port over there. God, they couldn't even beat Carlton, for God's sakes. Then play West Coast at Docklands, 50-50, and the Bulldogs, I'm not sure about that game, because the Bulldogs do play Etihad well, and we play Etihad well, so hopefully we have a good second half of the year, and make the finals, and maybe even push for the top 4 spot. And anything can happen from there. Bye.